Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send your donation through PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $Sal Showtime. Thanks for your support.
Brand disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by individuals on this platform, the callers plus invited guests, are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with this brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? How you guys doing? Welcome to another show. You're now listening to Season 10 of Debate Talk for You. I'm your host, Sal Showtime, and tonight we have the Hot Seat segment right here on Debate Talk for You, and we always invite a special guest to come on the platform and answer some of your questions. So if you want to dial in, the number is 319-527-6239. You can call in via phone, via Skype. You can call in via Google Voice and ask your questions. All you got to do is simply press number 1 and stand by. But, of course, I'm going to start off with a few questions of my own. And also, for those people that email some questions, the email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com. That's debatetalk, the number 4, and the letter U at gmail.com. Now, usually we introduce our special guests on other segments on this platform through debates and dialogues. But for the first time, we actually bringing someone on that's never really appeared. This is going to be his first time appearing on Debate Talk for You Radio, with the hopes that he'll keep joining us for other segments in the near future. All right, so this is my special guest, YHWH ben Yisrael of Yah, Our Righteousness. Welcome to the program.
Peace. Peace to all the audience, everyone out there. Yah bless.
All right, man. Once again, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the program. I appreciate you for coming on. For those who don't know who you are, give us a brief bio about yourself.
I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Didn't know it until 1973, October 1973, and really 1974. That's when I started reading the book in October 1973, and I came to realize I was an Israelite and my people are Israelites in 1974. And I've been reading and studying since then, and it's been a journey. And in 1986, September, about a month and a half prior to that, I came to understand with the Spirit of Yah upon me that the vehicle to represent Yah of hosts, he who creates, hosts, the King, the fountain of living water and Spirit and creator of all things, the vehicle was to be called, as we see in the book of Jeremiah or Jeremiah, chapter 23, Yah, our righteousness. And when I understood that, then I set about establishing that vehicle.
All right. Once again, we have a special guest, YHWH ben Yisrael of Yah, Our Righteousness, right here on the program, Debate Talk Free Radio, in the Hot Seat segment. The number is 319-527-6239. Like I said, you can email some of your questions. The chat room is also open, guys. If you're on Blog Talk Radio, you can utilize the chat room. Type your questions, and I'll gladly read them to my special guest. But let me start off with a few questions of my own. First, and of course, I'm going to read some of your emails. As a matter of fact, let me take one of these email questions right here. All right, here's the first question. Do you consider the Apocrypha book as actual fact?
No, the Apocrypha, as many other books, like Jasher or Enoch, Book of Jubilees, Josephus, Antiquities, these were all written by the illuminated Edomite. And the illuminated Edomites coming up through time. What makes the Book of Remembrance, the so-called Old Testament, the Word of Yah, is that it is all over the world in over 2,100 languages, which is the major part of what is called the Bible. And again, we here at Yah Righteousness, we understand that the New Testament is total idolatry. That was also written by the illuminated Edomites coming up through time. And that's their attack, not only on the children of Israel, but on the people of the world. And this was prophesied in Daniel chapter 11, verse 37, 38, 39. And as you read there in Daniel chapter 11, when you get to verse 40, 41, and 42, you'll see also the advent of Islam, referred to as the king of the south. Christianity is referred to as the king of the north. And it goes into, in that area of Daniel chapter 11, because when you get to verse 36, the vision that starts in Daniel chapter 10 ends in 1135. And when you get to verse 36 in chapter 11, now it has gone into the fourth kingdom of man. As we see in Daniel chapter 10, it starts out that vision that Daniel is getting ready to reveal to the reader, and it tells you it's in the third year of Cyrus the Great, which is the third year of the advent of the Medo-Persian kingdom. When you get to chapter 11, Daniel verse 3, you see the advent of the Greek kingdom, which was the third kingdom that Yah revealed to Daniel in chapter 2 of the book of Daniel. And again, as we've said in the past to everybody that might be out there that's acquainted with Yah righteousness, we've said in the past that vision that Daniel received of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, with the interpretation and the actual dream itself, that was not the first vision that Daniel received. That was the second vision that Daniel received. The first vision that Daniel received is the vision that you see that's been chopped up by the illuminated Edomite, because this book of remembrance has been attacked by the illuminated Edomites, but it's still just the way Yah wanted it to be. The essence of understanding this book of remembrance, this so-called Old Testament, one has to come to Yah with all their heart and soul, turn, submit, and obey, and pray, as we see in First Kings chapter 8 and 2 Chronicles chapter 6, chapter 6 and 7, and in 1 Kings it's really 8 and 9, because Yah's acceptance of Solomon's supplication, of which you'll see there in 1 Kings 8, 2 Chronicles chapter 6, in that acceptance, in that supplication that Solomon made at the completion of the first temple for Yah, you'll see there that Solomon makes the statement that if we got scattered, the children of Israel, out of the land for our iniquity at some point, and at some point in the lands of our enemies, if we bethought ourselves and turned back to Yah, as we see in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 2, with all our heart and all our soul, and turn back toward that city, Jerusalem, that temple, which was the first temple of Yah, built by Solomon, and prayed to Yah, humbled ourselves and prayed, then he asked Yah to hear in heaven and forgive him and those of us who were totally committed to him to bring us back. So that's part of the equation that one must do. You've got to read this book of remembrance, so-called Old Testament, like you would any book. You start out from the beginning, and you read it, Genesis through Malachi. And then you have to study without a doubt, because as it says in Yeshaya chapter 28, it's line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Sometimes you get snared. You think a thing is one way and it's not. And at some point, if one is totally committed, Yah will reveal to you that you made a mistake. Then one has to acknowledge that they made a mistake, and then they can continue to grow, okay, because it's a journey. You don't get everything at once, and you constantly, as Yah refers to us as his pleasant plants, his trees, you continually grow, okay? You continually grow until you die, and you never can cease to learn, and you never can cease to be admonished. So again, we have to read, we have to study, and we have to humble ourselves. Turn toward Jerusalem, pray to the Most High, acknowledge, as we see in Leviticus 26, 40, 41, and 42, we have to acknowledge our iniquity and the iniquity of our forefathers, all the way up to our father and mother today, maternal and paternal. And we have to accept of our punishment. And that's the only place in the book of remembrance, the so-called Old Testament, where you're going to see it written just that way. Because this journey is a refining journey, okay? Everybody that sets their feet upon this path in pursuit of He who creates, Yah of hosts, the King, the fountain of living waters, the Spirit and creator of all things, you're actually in a position to be refined, to be prepared for the time to come. And it's always that way. Yah is preparing those of us who have turned to Him with all our heart and soul, whether you Israelite, Hamite, Shemite, Yephite, or even Edomite, okay? He's preparing you for the time to come. But we know from what is written that many people on this earth today are not going to transition over into the kingdom of Yah. So I got a little steady.
All right.
Okay, I'm not trying to overwhelm. I'm giving you a break, but I can keep going as long as you want me to. Okay?
Yeah. I see that. Yeah. Now, if you got more questions again, the number is 319-527-6239. Like I said, anybody can call in. All you got to do is dial that number, press number 1, and we'll add you to the conversation. But now we got a lot more questions for you. I got some email questions to read to you. All right, here's the next one. It says, how many Hebrew Israelites consider the New Testament as factual? Well, no, it says many Hebrew Israelites consider the New Testament as factual, but you do not. Could you please explain why?
Because when you say New Testament, that denotes a change. When you say new, okay? And as we see in Malachi chapter 3, verse 6, the last prophet of Yah in this book of remembrance, so-called Old Testament, Yah changes not. And if you go back to Deuteronomy chapter 32, which was in the time of Moses, Yah had told Moses to give the children of Israel at that time. They had just about finished the 40 years in the wilderness. And Moshe could not cross over the Jordan into the land of Canaan because he made a mistake at the waters of Meribah Kadesh by not exalting Yah, okay, because he got angry at the people. But nevertheless, Yah told him to give those children of Israel the law one more time before he died and before they crossed over into the land of Canaan. And you see there in chapter 32 of the book of Deuteronomy that Moshe told them, he says, you're going to cross over this Jordan. You're going to get houses that you didn't build. You're going to get wells you didn't dig, vineyards that you didn't plant. You're going to wax and rich in silver and gold. But as time goes by, your offspring, your descendants are going to start to worship new idols, newly raised up, not Yah, but devils. And when you read that, okay, and then you understand this was 1400 BCE. And as I just mentioned, the vision of Nebuchadnezzar, the first vision that Daniel got, which was about the dream that Yah had given Nebuchadnezzar. And again, the reason why Yah had given Nebuchadnezzar this dream a few times, evidently, was because of the thoughts of Nebuchadnezzar's head upon his bed, as Daniel said to him when he was brought into him to reveal the dream and then the interpretation. And again, this dream that Nebuchadnezzar had was predicated upon the fact that he wanted to know what was going to happen in the future. And so Yah gave him this dream a few times, And in doing so, Yah he put Daniel in a position where he gave Daniel this, let me just say this like this. Nebuchadnezzar, when he had the dream, and I know many people out there have read this, but I'm still going to go through it. Nebuchadnezzar had this dream because he wanted to know what was going to happen in the future. And Nebuchadnezzar represented the head of gold on the image of the four kingdoms of man. And I stress the four kingdoms of man, okay? Not the four kingdoms of the Gentiles, okay? Because you're not going to see that expressed that way anywhere in the book of Daniel or anywhere else from Genesis through Malachi. It's called the four kingdoms of man, okay? And again, when Nebuchadnezzar got the dream, he took it to his prognosticators, soothsayers, his advisors, and he said, I've been having this dream, and I want to know the interpretation of it. So his soothsayers and prognosticators and advisors said, well, tell us the dream, we'll tell you the interpretation. But Yah gave Nebuchadnezzar enough wisdom at that time to understand, as he said to them, I know for a surety if I tell you the dream, you're going to make lies up to tell me. So the only way I know if you truly know the interpretation of this dream is for you to tell me the dream without me telling you what the dream is. And so they responded, there is no one, you understand, on earth that can do that. Nobody but the gods can do that. So Nebuchadnezzar was very angry, and he put forth the decree to kill all the wise men, of which Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, because, they changed, the children of Israel's names from the captivity. And so Daniel had been made, he had been a wise man, taken in as a wise man, as they had taken the children who excelled before them, as it tells you in Daniel chapter 1, of the children of YHWH and Jerusalem and Benjamin. They took the children and the ones who excelled with knowledge and understanding, then they took them and set them in their court, okay, of which Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, commonly called Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were these four of the children of Israel, or of the tribe of YHWH, that he had taken. And so as it tells us in chapter 1, Daniel had gained favor in the eyes of the captain of the guard. So when the decree went out from Nebuchadnezzar, the captain of the guard came in and to Daniel and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah and said, okay, come on, because the king has given a decree to slay all the wise men. And so Daniel says to the captain of the guard, why is the decree so hasty? And so he says, take me in and let me, talk to the king. So the captain of the guard took Daniel in, and he was by himself initially the first time. And Daniel asked Nebuchadnezzar to give him and his companions some time, and he would reveal the dream with the interpretation. As I've said in the past, he probably gave him one night till the next day. And so that night, as it says, Daniel, him, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they prayed to Yah. And in the night vision, Yah gave Daniel the dream and the interpretation, and he shared it with Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The next morning, he said, take us in before the king. And so the former were taken in, but Daniel was the one who was doing the talking, addressing Nebuchadnezzar. And as you see there in chapter 2, Daniel, told him that this wisdom and understanding was not given to him for, of this dream and in the interpretation, because he was more wiser than anybody else or smarter than anybody else, but because Yah wanted him, Nebuchadnezzar, and others to know what was going to happen in the future. Okay, so he told him about the dream, about the image, okay, that he saw. And then he gave him the interpretation of that image, what it all meant. Okay, and in the image, the head of gold was representative of Nebuchadnezzar in actuality, or the Babylonian kingdom, the first kingdom of man. Okay, now again, as I just said a little while ago, when you go to Deuteronomy chapter 32 and see what Moshe said to the children of Israel before he died and before they went over into the land of Canaan. As I said earlier, that was in 1400 BCE, approximately 800 years, not quite, but just about 800 years before this situation with Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, okay? And Daniel interpreting the dream that Yah was giving Nebuchadnezzar because of the thoughts in his head upon his bed. And so as Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar, that head of gold that you saw in the image, that's you. That's the Babylonian kingdom, the first kingdom of man. And then he told him about the second kingdom, the Medo-Persian, well, he just said the second kingdom there in chapter 2 was, the chest and the arms were of silver, which we know in chapter 7 Daniel that was representative of the Medo-Persian kingdom. Then he saw the thighs and the hips of brass. We know from Daniel chapter 7 that was the Greek kingdom. And then he described the kingdom of iron, which was from the legs, from the kneecaps down to the ankles, okay? And that was the kingdom of iron. And then the rest of, and also that fourth kingdom, the feet and toes were part iron, part clay, okay? Because the fourth kingdom would be partly strong and partly broken, all right? And we know, as it says there in chapter 2, clay cannot mix with iron. And the miry clay is representative of the children of Israel, okay? And as we said here, Yah righteousness to everyone in the past, Israel can never mix with the iron, just like clay cannot mix with the iron. Israel could never mix with the gold. Israel could never mix with the silver. Israel could never mix with the brass, all right? Because Israel, as it says in Deuteronomy chapter 28, 15 through 67, if Israel did not obey all of the law of YHWH, they would be cut off from Yah. They would cut themselves off from Yah, the fountain of living waters, the tree of life, which YHWH is, and they would inherit this curse of the famine, pestilence, poverty, and the sword. And the sword is death. We also see in the book of Amos where Yah said that he would cause a famine of hearing his words, okay, if we didn't obey his word, which our forefathers did not. They did initially, but as time went by, as I just said earlier, when you read Deuteronomy chapter 32, what did Moshe tell them? He says, you're going to go across this Jordan. First, you're going to get houses you didn't build, wells you didn't dig, vineyards you didn't plant. You're going to wax and rich in silver and gold. But as time goes by, your descendants, your offspring, are going to turn away from Yah, and they're going to start to worship new idols, newly raised up. Not Yah, but devils. And then all of that curse is going to come upon them, okay? And when that happened, Israel cut themselves off. Because, again, as it says in Amos 3:3, two cannot walk together unless they are agreed. And that is a immutable pillar. Yah changes not. And so when Israel turned away from Yah, then they brought that curse upon themselves and got themselves cut off. That's why they can never mix. They couldn't mix with the gold. They couldn't mix with the silver. They couldn't mix with the brass. And they cannot mix with this iron, which is steadily shown to us at this point in time in what man calls 2020 CEAD, all right? We should, those of us who are in this book, that shouldn't be hard to understand. I mean, that should be very plain. I mean, we just had what we saw here the other day, Monday, in recognition of Martin Luther King Jr., right? His birthday, which again, as we're told, if one understands the book of Ecclesiastes, we shouldn't worship birthdays in the first place, right? As we see in the book of Job. You understand? His children, the house fell on his children for worshiping their day. They would get together and worship their day. That's why the house fell in on them. But nevertheless, we have taken on the ways of the heathen in these four kingdoms of man. That's why Yah severed Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, because they would not go into a covenant with Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? And that's from this vision, or should I say dream, that Yah was giving Nebuchadnezzar because of the thoughts of his head upon his bed. That's how Yah anointed himself in the sight of Nebuchadnezzar and the elitist of the Babylonian Chaldeans. But he also uplifted Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah at that same time. As we see in chapter 2, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were not set up on the same level as Daniel initially. But a little bit later on, in regards to the image that Nebuchadnezzar made of himself, that Daniel did not have to bow down to, but Nebuchadnezzar wanted Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah to bow down to, and they told him, we're just like Daniel. We're not bowing down to this either. We worship Yah. And he got very upset about that and had them thrown into this fiery furnace, and Yah sent his angel to protect Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And after that, then Yah anointed himself again. See, because again, we have to understand when we read this book of remembrance, this so-called Old Testament, Genesis through Malachi, once you do some research, continue research, you'll find out that it was during from the 4th to the 9th century CE AD, these, as I look at them as Edomites, called Mezerites, is somewhere between the 4th and the 9th century CE AD that they took the name of Yah out of this book of remembrance in over 6,800 places. And they replaced it with El and Adonai. And eventually El became God, and God just means good. It's the archaic German word, gut, that became that basically the illuminated Edomites started to promulgate to the people and using it as meaning in reference to the Creator. But when you say, in actuality, when you say God, G-O-D, you're just saying good. So then they added another O for the term good. But God means the same thing. It just means good. And that's what they started to inseminate into this book through the transliterations in representative of the term El, and then Adonai became Lord. And Lord just means master, which Yah is. He is the master, okay, as he says over in Malachi chapter 1, if I am thy father, where's my honor? If I am thy master, where's my fear? Okay? But nevertheless, again, Daniel was lifted up when Yah gave him that vision. He sat in the gate of the king, as it so states in Daniel chapter 2. And like I said earlier, that was the second vision that Daniel had. And we know that here at Yah Righteousness because the vision, as I said earlier, from 1136 to 1210 Daniel, that's the first vision that he got. What basically underscores that is when you go over to chapter 12 Daniel, verse 8, where, Daniel had said that he didn't understand what the angel was conveying to him. And again, he's told there, or should I say, he heard the angel standing on the water when one of the angels that was on one side of the bank of the river asked the angel that was standing on the water, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And the angel on the water said, for a time and a half. So that's 2,500 years, okay? And Daniel got that first vision in the 4th year of his captivity. And the Nebuchadnezzar came and took the first bunch of YHWH, Benjamin, and the Lewites up into Babylon in 606 BCE, the year before he became king. Okay, he was co-regent with his father Nebuchadnezzar in 606. Nebuchadnezzar, his father, was king, but the following year in 605, Nebuchadnezzar died, and that's when Nebuchadnezzar became sole king. But he came and took the first bunch up into Babylon of YHWH, Benjamin, and Lewi in 606. So that's where you start counting from. And it was the fourth year of Daniel's captivity when Yah came to him with this first vision. That's 602 BCE. Okay? And when you add 1896, which is the year that ended the 2 days, as we see in Hosea chapter 6 at the top, 2 days being 2,000 years, that the window was closed, the door was closed, where Yah could not be found by any of the children of Israel. Okay? Because again, as we see in Deuteronomy chapter 28, 15 through 67, Israel was to be brought under other people when this curse got to the point the light was going out. Because again, Israel is the light bearer. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I say that, again, those who are acquainted with this book of remembrance, this so-called Old Testament, we see in Proverbs chapter 6, and again, Proverbs was written by the wisest man ever to be on earth and ever would be, and that's Solomon, the son of David. He was the governor that followed David up on the throne. And I say governor, not king, because Yah is the king. We understand that here at Yah Righteousness. And he is the only king. All of the, it was the illuminated Edomites that inseminated that Book of the Kings. Okay, it should be Book of the Governors. Okay, but nevertheless, Solomon wrote in Proverbs chapter 6 that the law is light, and the commandment to obey it is a lamp. And so, if you've got wisdom, when you have the light in the lamp, you don't hold the lamp that's holding the light behind you. You don't hold it to the side of you. You hold it out in front of you so that you can see the snares, the traps, the pits, the mines that have been set, okay, so that you don't get blown up, so that you don't fall in a hole. And we see when you look at it and see that, then you go back to Deuteronomy and you see what Moses said to the children of Israel back then, 1400 BCE, when Yah told him to give them the law one more time before you die and before they cross over into the land of Canaan. And when Moshe laid all of that law out, as he says in chapter 6 of Deuteronomy, Yah is one Lord, one Master, one Yah, one He who creates, one. Okay? As he told them, you're not supposed to make a similitude of anything, male, female, any fowl of the air, beast of the field, and worship it. Okay? Yah is one. And again, I stress that because when you go over to Zechariah chapter 14, the last chapter of the book of Zechariah, it's talking about the last battle. And after that last battle that's ahead of us, not that far in the future now, but it's ahead of us, still has not been fulfilled, you'll see there after that last battle, what does it say? Yah shall be one and his name one in all of the earth forever. Okay? So again, the law is light. And we see Moshe in the book of Deuteronomy, when you get toward the end, what did he say? I've laid before you life and death. So choose life, that you and your seed. Your days may be prolonged, multiplied, prolonged, which automatically means at some point you've got to die. Okay? Because when Yah said first and the last, then that if one person lives forever, then Yah's a liar. He's not the first and the last. See? We live on. The eternal life is through the seed and the eggs, the children. Okay? And they understood that back in ancient times. That's why Saul, the last thing he said to David was what? He said, I know now that Yah is going to establish thee over Israel. Swear to me when he does this, you will not extinguish, wipe out, exterminate my seed. Because that's the everlasting life. Because Yah is the first and the last. Right there, no one human being can live forever because Yah is the last. All right? But nevertheless, again, we have inherited this curse, and we've been born into this curse. Those are the children of Israel today. But as of 1896, those 2 days, Hosea chapter 6, ended. The 2 days are 2,000 years of cutoff. Okay, that's when William Crowdy in New York started teaching we was Israel. But that movement, as we said in the past, is still caught up in Christianity, in the lie, okay, in the deception. All right? And again, when you look at that first page of the New Testament, when it says new, that denotes a change. Okay? Like I said, remember what Moshe said to the children of Israel in Deuteronomy chapter 32. Remember what it says in Malachi 3:6, Yah changes not. When you continue to read what it says on that first page in the New Testament, what does it say? It says the good spell writings. That's actually what gospel means, good spell. Okay, S-P-E-L. Look it up sometime. You only have 3 kind of spells, and 2 of them are deleted. It can't be talking about 2 of those spells, can only be talking about 1. And the definition of that 1 is bringing someone under an incantation or a trance. And we see this
in Hudah.
Okay.
Let me jump in real quick. The number 319-527-6239. Now, I see we got people on the phone lines listening to the program. For the new listeners out there, if you're already on the phone lines, checking out the show, and you have a question or a comment, all you got to do is press number 1, and you can ask questions or comment, whatever you heard on this program. My special guest is YHWH ben Yisrael of Yah, our righteousness. Again, if you have any questions, simply press number 1, and we can bring you in a conversation. If you're listening on social media, you have to dial the number 319-527-6239. That's 319-527-6239. And that lets me know that you have a question. Then again, you got to press number 1 time. Don't press it again; it's going to take you off the switchboard. So if you have any questions and you're already on the phone line, simply press number 1, and we'll bring in some of your questions in live. But you can finish up on that point. I got some more questions for you.
Okay, so again, we see in Proverbs chapter 6, the law is light, the commandment to obey it is a lamp. When you go to Proverbs chapter 3, it says the same thing that Moses said to the children of Israel back then in 1400 BC in the book of Deuteronomy, right? He says, you are supposed to keep this law with all of the statutes, judgments, ordinances, and precepts, commandments before your eyes like frontlets. Okay? So when we go to Proverbs chapter 3, it says, we acknowledge Yah in all our ways, and he will direct our paths. Because the law of Yah, okay, with all of the statutes, ordinances, judgments, commandments, and precepts, that is the ultimate measuring stick. Okay? And we're supposed to apply that. As it says in Deuteronomy 1:17, we're not supposed to respect persons in judgment, and I don't care who it is, okay, because they're flesh, right? We're not supposed to put our trust in flesh, okay?
Yeah.
And that means you don't even put trust in yourself. As I've told everybody that's plugged into Yah Righteousness or has come to Yah Righteousness, the website, YahRighteousnessChicago.net, I don't even trust me. I trust Yah because I'm flesh, right? So we acknowledge Yah in all our ways. And as Yah says in Deuteronomy 1:17, we're not supposed to respect persons, and the judgment is his. And that is his righteousness. And again, to come back around to that Apocrypha and the book of Jubilees and the book of Jasher and Enoch and Josephus' Antiquities, these are all written by the descendants of Esau, the illuminated Edomite coming up through time. Okay? That's why, again, basically from the advent of the 20th century up to now into the 21st century, they know that the Apocrypha is not canonized. You don't see it in the majority of these Bibles. It used to be put in the Bible many, many years ago. I was blessed to see a 19th century Bible back in the late 70s and the early 80s. I had it in my possession for a while. It wasn't mine, but it was given to me for a period of time. And it had the Apocrypha in there, and I went all through it. And the Apocrypha, again, is a bunch of Esau's, just like Hollywood. It's just like what Esau, the Edomites, were doing in the Greek period with the Greek fables, because that was the illuminated Edomite in that Greek period with all the Greek fables, okay? That wasn't Greeks. That was the illuminated Edomite. And now he's got his myth factory that exists today they call Hollywood. I call it Hollywood, all right? That they issue all of the cockatrices, the serpents, the lies and the deception. You follow what I'm saying? And if one, again, has a grasp of this book, a lot of it is predicated or comes some kind of way from this book of remembrance, like Back to the Future 2. I've talked about that in the past. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, when they put that together, it's just talking about Biff is the illuminated Edomite who got a hold of this book of remembrance, as the illuminated Edomites did back around 330, 329 BCE, right around the advent of the Greek kingdom, okay? And to truly understand that, again, when you read the book of Hadassah, or as they call it, Esther, the Edomites at that time, led by Haman, who was, prime minister to Xerxes Ahasuerus, they wanted to totally wipe out the seed of Israel. And Haman and his cohorts, these other Amalekite Edomites, were moving to do that. Even got a petition signed by Xerxes Ahasuerus to actually do that. But Yah counteracted it through Mordecai and Esther, Hadassah, and counteracted that. That's why you in this fourth kingdom, and probably even in the third kingdom at some point, Esau propaganda machine put out about Friday the 13th, a bad luck day, okay? Because Haman, as we see in the book of Hadassah, Esther, he had got this petition signed that on the Sabbath day, and again, we don't have the real time now, but from what I understand to an extent, the actual real calendar consists of 13 months, 28 days each. And if you multiply that, you'll see it comes out to 364 days. But in that original calendar, every 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th day of the month always was on the Sabbath day. Okay? And so the Amalekite Edomites, led by Haman in the book of Hadassah, Esther, when he got the petition signed, they were going to attack us on the 14th day of the month. But when Mordecai got wind of this, and as he put it to his niece, who had become one of the wives of Xerxes Ahasuerus and his preferred wife, as we see, they got that, counteracted that with another petition, because, again, remember, the law of the Medes and Persians never changes. So when Mordecai and Hadassah, his niece, got this petition together, they couldn't stop the petition that had already been signed by the great king Xerxes Ahasuerus, that Haman and the Amalekites had gotten together to attack us on the 14th. So what they did, they set up their petition where we were to attack them on the 13th. And that's more than likely why you got this Friday the 13th bad luck day. But again, that's, like I said,
I apologize, Yehuda. I apologize, Elder. We got some people standing by waiting to answer some questions. They standing by patiently. Yeah, so let's get some of these calls. All right, once again, family, all you got to do is press number 1. If you're already on the phone line, press number 1, and we'll go down the line and get some of your questions. If you're not on the phone line, the number is 319-527-6239. Then you press number 1, and we can get some of your questions and your comments live. But let's go down the line and get some of your questions or comments. And remember, there's no foul language. You got to keep it clean, keep it professional. Let's go to 719. You're live.
I'm on the line.
719. Yep, you're live. Yep. What's going on?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. This is Salem from Alabama. I just wanted to make a comment. Everything the brother's saying is solid and it's sound, and it is the truth. So that's my comment.
All right. Straight up with it. Okay. You can respond, Yehuda. You can respond.
Again, y'all bless Brother Shalom. I know the brother. We've had many conversations in the last 3.5 years. And like I said, we commiserate a lot. What's next?
All right.
All right, man. I appreciate your call, man. Appreciate you, man. Let's go to the next caller. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. We'd like to hear from the people out there. Don't be shy. Let's dial that number. Press number 1, and we'll add you in the conversation. It's Debate Talk Free Radio. Somebody pressed number 1 and took themselves off the switchboard just now. If that was a mistake, just press it again, and we'll bring you back on. Okay, I see you. Let's go to 614. You're live. 614. You're live.
Good evening, sir. This is Brother Chance Roberson from Columbus, Ohio. Mr. YHWH. My question is in regards to there's 66 books in the Bible, and I know you do not acknowledge none of the New Testament out of the 27. I want to know, so therefore, because you don't acknowledge none of it, does that mean you do not acknowledge none of the characters, the apostles, etc., as well?
That's correct, because it's all idolatry. Again, as I said, I just take you back to the first page on the New Testament. When it says new, that denotes a change. Again, Malachi 3:6, Yah changes not. When you keep on reading, what does it say? The good spell writing. That's what gospel means, good spell, good trance, good incantation. And what does it say? Of our Lord and Savior. And then it says what? Jesus Christ. Okay, so when you examine the name Jesus, what is it derived from? It is derived from the Hebraic name YHWH. So that's all Jesus means, is YHWH. And if you go to Numbers chapter 13, you'll see there that that's where it lets us know that Moses, called his protege, whose initial name was Oshay or Oshua, the son of Nun. It was Moshe that named him YHWH. And YHWH means he who creates my salvation, my deliverer, or my help. Okay? So now I put to you, why would you worship someone whose name means that Yah is his salvation, his help, his deliverer, which again, as I said earlier, right, offsets what you see in Deuteronomy chapter 6, because you're worshiping an image, a similitude. It makes no difference what its pigmentation is. It's a similitude. We were told not to make a similitude of anything or anybody. And as I said, the name Jesus is YHWH. Okay? They spell it, Esau is real, you understand, devious, because when you look at Numbers chapter 13, it's going to be spelled JEHOSHUA. But when you go 2 books over, same person, now they're spelling it JOSHUA. It's also spelled Jeshua, JESHUA, right? It's also spelled Hosea. They spell it about 5 different ways, okay? But it's all meaning the same, YHWH, which means he who creates, or Yah is my help, my strength, my salvation, my deliverer. So again, Yah is one, not two or three. He's one. And again, don't take my word for it. Just go straight on over there to Deuteronomy chapter 6 and read it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can I, sir, can I ask another question, or do we have other callers? Right? I do have one other thing I want to ask you, sir.
Yeah, you can ask another question. We got other callers, though. We can ask another question. It's cool.
Yeah. Okay, I'll make it quick. Now, as far as with the movement, do y'all do anything as far as like for the community or getting the word out about the movement? I just happen to heard about you from word of mouth. So is there any other acknowledgement of the movement that is consistent out there in the community? Okay,
well, again, Yah runs this movement. It's called Yah our righteousness, not YHWH our righteousness. Okay? One day I got to die. I got to go, just like David told Solomon, one day I got to go the way of all the earth. Okay? As we all do. Yah runs this. Like it says in Hosea chapter 13, we wait on Yah continually. This movement is the arm of Yah. Okay? And just like you move your arm when you get ready, Yah moves this movement when he gets ready. And we wait on him. And again, when you say getting it out, it's being gotten out now by Yah. Isn't it? Okay.
Yes,
but also, when you go to Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 66, okay, what do we see there? We see it starts out, Yah's talking. 66th chapter of Yeshaya, Isaiah. He says, the heaven is my throne, the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that you build unto me? Where is the place of my rest? For all this has my hand made. Then it goes on to talk about the Edomites today, who are in the land of what's called Israel. That's not all of it. That's just a part of it, okay? Because they've been there, 124 years this year. Still no temple of Yah, right? Again, you don't see any of the other tribes, right, in the land. And that's still not all Israel, because the boundaries of Israel eventually are going to go from the Euphrates to the river of Egypt. And when I say the river of Egypt, that's not in Egypt. That's what's called was called the Wadi El Arish. It comes off the Mediterranean. You got to get some old maps to see it, because they've changed the name from the river of Egypt to the Wadi El Arish. I think it might be still called that. But again, that will be the southernmost tip of Israel, okay? The Mediterranean to the west. And I'm not just actually sure where the eastern boundary is, but I know it's on the other side of the Jordan, all right? So again, these Edomites have been in the land, as it was prophesied that they would be, right, that they would return, Malachi chapter 1, and build the desolate waste. And Yah said, yea, ye shall return and you shall build, but I will throw down and you shall be called the borders of wickedness, which many people in the world have risen up against them. That's why we're seeing so much as Esau with his propaganda machine here in the door to Babylon, the United States of America puts out anti-Semitism, like they're the only Semites or Shemites in the world. Okay? But nevertheless, you understand the ire, okay, of many people today has risen up against them because, again, a lot of people in the world, descendants of Japheth, who, as I've been told, a lot of Israelites think are Edomites, and they're not, all right? Because when you look at that one chapter, Obadiah, Yah tells you there, he has made the descendants of Esau small amongst the heathen, and they are greatly despised, and that's what we're bearing witness to today, right? This is why you're seeing so many people rising up and denoting that those Edomites in the land today, right, the Zionist movement, right, as an apartheid movement, because of what it's doing to our brothers and sisters, the so-called Palestinians. Because as we said before here at Yah Righteousness, the so-called Palestinians, for the better part, the most part, I'm not saying all, just like all of us that look, that are considered black or colored or Negro, right, are not Israelites, okay? As I said before, Louis Farrakhan, he looks like us, but he's an Edomite. His mother was an Israelite, but as he said out of his own mouth in a 60-minute interview back around 2002 with Bob Simon, that his mother told him his daddy was a Jew. See? So right there.
All right, I got to jump in real quick, y'all. I apologize. We have a time limit on the program. I apologize. We got to get some of the callers in, but 614, any last words before we move on?
Thank you for your time.
All right.
Thank you for your
Appreciate
time.
your call.
Peace, bro.
Appreciate that. All right, like I said, we have a limited time, so once again, the number is 319-527-6239. My special guest is YHWH, Ben Yisrael of Yah Our Righteousness. If you want to go to the website, you can go to YahOurRighteousnessChicago.net. That's YahOurRighteousnessChicago.net. I have the link in the description box. If you want to just click it, and you go right to the website and check them out. But we got to get some of these other callers. Let's go to 475. You're live.
Peace. This is Yasan calling from Connecticut, and I just wanted to ask, what's so bad about Jesus? What's so bad about YHWH? Why Israelites can't worship him and get along with their, everyone around them, and just everyone be united and be one and become integrated? What's so wrong about that?
Well, what's wrong about it, again, is like it says in Amos 3:3, two cannot walk together unless they are agreed. It's just that simple, okay? You understand? Yah is one. His way is one. And there are no duplicities or, it's no, dubiousness in it. You're either with Yah or you're not, okay? And so you can't, if anybody's in the idolatry, right, of which Christianity and its main idol is representative of, because there's many idols in Christianity, representative of Christianity, and it's the same with Islam, Judaism, okay, because Judaism, as it's called today, initially started out in 300 BCE as Hasidism, all right? Again, those of you out there who have done some research to this extent, you know that the letter J didn't even come into existence until the middle of the 17th century CE AD. Okay? Because, again, if you've ever seen an original King James Bible, it didn't say King James, it said King Eames with an I, I-A-M-E-S. Okay? So, again, that's totally idolatrous. It has nothing to do with Yah. Simple as that. And as I said earlier, it was talked about as other idols and images were talked about in Deuteronomy chapter 32, but it's also more explicit in Daniel chapter 11, verse 37, 8, and 9, if one understands what they're actually reading about there, because you're reading about the fourth kingdom of man. You want me to go on? Or somebody else want to ask me something else?
Yeah, 475. You got a follow-up question? You can continue, or we can go to the next caller.
I do have a follow-up question. It's about Matthew, where it's quoting Psalms, and it says it's Matthew 22, verse 41, and it says, while the Pharisees were gathered together, JC asked them, saying, what think ye of Christ? Whose son is he? They said unto him, so the Pharisees said unto him that he's the son of David. He said unto them, how then doth David in spirit call him Lord, saying, the Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou on my right hand till I make thine enemies thy footstool. If David then call him Lord, how is he his son? So I wanted to get some clarity on, I think that's Psalms 42.
That's Psalms 110th Psalm. And again, you understand that, like I said, the illuminated Edomites, they wrote the New Testament. They predicated it on the Book of Remembrance. And the whole purpose of it is to cut any and everybody, especially the children of Israel, and especially the descendants of Jerusalem, because they understand it's the descendants of Jerusalem, a seed of David that had to establish YHWH, according to the Book of Remembrance. So the whole thing was to derail the people. Now, when that what you mentioned over there in the New Testament, first of all, when you go to that 110th Psalm, the writer of it is saying the first Lord that you see is all capitalized. As I said earlier, when one does enough research, you will come to find out that every place where you see Lord or God in all capital letters, that's where Yah was, YHWH, or in English, YHWH. All right? So the first Lord there in the 110th Psalm is Yah said to my Lord. And remember, this is somebody else writing this, and they're saying that Yah said to David, stand at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool. All right? Because that's why Yah did not allow David to build the temple for him, as you'll see over in 2 Samuel chapter 7. All right? Because Yah didn't raise David up to do that. He raised David up, him and the mighty men of Israel, to subdue the land of Canaan. And that's what Yah did through them, and that's what they did. Because he told David, you spilled blood in my sight. In other words, I didn't raise you up to build my temple, but since you had this in your heart, I'm going to make an everlasting covenant with you and your seed, and I'm going to raise your seed up, because his days is going to be the days of peace, and he's going to build my temple. And we know the first temple was built by Solomon. And when Solomon came upon the throne, it was a time of peace. Okay? So, again, as I tell everybody, if you can't see it, that the New Testament is idolatry on the very first page, that's the cover sheet, then go into the first chapter. Now, you mentioned in what you quoted out of Matthew, wherever it was, that David was this so-called Jesus was the seed of David. But if you go in the first chapter, that's not true. Because when you read it, it's going to tell you that this Joseph there, and they've got him coming out of the line of David, because they've got him coming out, as it says in Matthew chapter 1, Yechoniah, which is Yechoniah or Konya. Okay? But nevertheless, when you keep reading, it says that this Joseph never had intercourse with his wife Mary. And she came up pregnant, and at first when, according to the story there in chapter 1 Matthew, when she came up pregnant, he was going to divorce her because he figured she had committed an adultery. Then supposedly he was told by the angel that she is with seed of the Holy Ghost. Well, okay, if you want to look at it from that perspective, then that's not the seed of David, because Joseph never had intercourse with her. He never ejaculated in her, so that's not the seed of David. Now, it might be the seed of the Holy Ghost, but that ain't the seed of David, and that right there kills it, because it has to be the seed of David, okay? And man, okay, and woman, Yah only brings forth children when they have intercourse, all right? But not only that, okay, if you go back to Jeremiah chapter 22, and look at the bottom part of Jeremiah chapter 22, it's going to tell you, Yah is talking there, and he said, no seed of Konya would ever prosper on the throne of David again, ever, because of the wickedness of Konya. Okay? So either way you want to look at it, it's knocked out right there. Okay?
I apologize, Elder. We only have like 52 minutes on the air. And once again, we got a lot of people standing by waiting to ask you questions.
All right,
we're going to
come
get
on.
some more of these calls. Once again, the number is 319-527-6239. You're now listening to the Hot Seat segment right here on Debate Talk Radio. And we appreciate the family out there that has their questions and their comments because, you know, you never know. This might be your only opportunity to ask questions to certain special guests live. So take advantage of the moment. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. Let's go down the line and get the next question. Let's go to 530. You're live.
Yes, greetings. This is B.A. Ben Abraham out of Sacramento, California. How you brothers doing this evening?
Peace, brother.
So, on over here.
Okay, I tuned in a little late, but Sal just mentioned this was a hot seat. So, my purpose, I want to ask the brothers, is very clear that he has this stance. So, I just want to know what's your name, brother, and your information, so I can look into you and check out more of your teachings.
YHWH Ben Yisrael. YHWHudah. Ben Ben Yisrael. Yisrael. And this is Yah Righteousness. Chicago.net is our website. You can go there. You can see everything we've been doing since Yah brought this movement out, started to bring it out into the public eye. And as I didn't say with that previous question, not the last one, but the one before him, again, when you look at that Yeshaya chapter 66, as I said, it starts out with Yah is talking, and he said, heaven is my throne, the earth is my footstool, where is the house he built unto me? Then it goes on to say about how your brethren that hated you, talking about the descendants of Esau, that cast you out for my name's sake. And we see that's just what they did, because they came up at the destruction of Jerusalem in 587-86 with the Chaldean Babylonians and all those other peoples. Esau was as one of them, okay? And again, you'll see this accounted for in the 137th Psalm at the bottom, when the writer of that Psalm said, he's saying that you're appealing to Yah, don't forget Edom, who said, raise it, even to the foundation there, of talking about that first temple that Solomon built, okay? Yah brought Nebuchadnezzar to burn the temple down, to destroy it. That wasn't enough for the descendants of Esau. They raise it to the foundation, because they didn't want any remembrance of Yah, not only in Jerusalem, but in the earth. And this is why, one of the reasons why they've come up with Hasidism that evolved into Judaism. They've come up with Christianity. They've come up with Islam. They've come up with Scientology, okay, which is pretty, only existed now about the last 50 years, okay? Again, because they are trying to keep this illumination, this knowledge of he who creates, Yah of hosts, the King, the founder of living waters, the spirit and creator of all things, the tree of life, as he's called in Genesis chapter 2, right? They're trying, or chapter 3, they're trying to keep the knowledge of him out of the world. But it's, that's what they've tried to do. But again, it's been all for naught. Because not only illuminated Edomites know about Yah, it's other peoples. These monarchies, they know about Yah, all right? And they've even come to know more about him in the last 16 years, going on 16, okay. Over 15. Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question. When it comes to the Hasidistic Jews, are you familiar with their origins and how they? Are you familiar with why they were? Are you familiar with them overall?
Well, again, as I've said in the past to everybody that plugs into Yah Righteousness, I don't get into the Hasidic. And again, like I said, Hasidic comes from Hasidism. I just said that, right? You go and get you some history book. You can go back and you'll see that Hasidism came on the scene in 300 BCE, approximately 22 years after the 83rd Psalm. All right?
Okay.
Did you hear me? 83rd Psalm. Okay. Now, again, I don't get into the whether they're, Ashkenazi or Sephardim, because that's a waste of time as far as I'm concerned. All I'm concerned about, are they an Edomite, and then what do they espouse? Okay.
Well, let me say this. Before they were, those individuals turned into what we know as the Pharisees, and from the Pharisees we know them as rabbinic Judaizers now in this modern day age. Now, when it comes to the Hasidic, to those Jews you mentioned, they had an interpretation of Torah. When it came to the Israelites, and they came back from captivity from Babylon, when the Persians allowed them to come back, Israel was already, it had so many different sects within Israel. So the Hasidic Jews, pretty much they have their own interpretation of Torah. But the thing overall is that I think maybe before you speak against the Hasidic, those Jews, you may need to maybe do more research and understand what they were talking about, because there was never anything about them trying to create some type of idolatrous type religion. It was more so them just trying to come back to the ways of Torah because they came back from captivity. So, and that's why we have halakha, which also are known as the oral traditions. So I would suggest you do more research on that. But
I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
And another thing, I want to ask you about Zechariah chapter 12.
Okay, well, let me hold that. Let me answer that. Okay, as I said earlier, I've done some research on them, and again, when you say Jew, that's not an Israelite. The only Israelites that call themselves Jews are the Israelites who are confused, because Israelites are not Jews. Okay, that term Jew comes from Judaism. Simple as that.
Okay,
it's the Edomites. That's the Edomite religion. Okay.
Do you know how the term? Do you know what the term Jew came from?
It came from Judaism.
Israelite, no. Jew. The reason the term Jew comes from people who lived in the land of Judea.
Again, brother. Again, there is no tribe, or never was any tribe in the nation of Israel called Judah.
I didn't say that.
You me?
I said
there's never been a tribe in the nation of Israel called Judah.
No one.
The name that Esau put Judah in the place of is YHWH. That's my name, brother. YHWH. That's what Leah named her fourth son. YHWH.
One at a time, y'all. One at a time. Go ahead.
I never said anything about a tribe named Jew. It was that was a term on the people who live in the land region of Judea. That's where that term comes from.
And as I said, brother, that was the Edomites that introduced that name. There was never a tribe in the nation of Israel called Judah. The name is YHWH because that's what Leah, that's what she named her fourth son. She said, Yah be praised. He who creates be praised.
Okay, bro. Okay. All right. I'll let you have that one since you don't want to listen.
It's not about me having anything, brother. You said I need to go research. You need to go and do some research yourself, okay? Because as I said earlier, you said you came in late. I'm going to say this. Maybe you didn't hear this. The letter J did not come in existence until the midst of the 17th century CE AD.
Please don't start that. The J sound was always around before the letter J. Please don't do this. Please don't. You don't know what you're talking about. Because we go to Zechariah.
Your opinion, you're entitled to it.
That's fine. But get you an encyclopedia and read that on the letter J. But can we deal with Zechariah chapter 12, please?
Zechariah chapter 12 is talking. It's up in front of us. That hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
Zechariah 12 and 13th chapter. Do you want me to answer? You got something else you want me to say? Go ahead. I'm listening.
No, you won't even let me get to the details of where in chapter in Zechariah chapter 12 want to do.
Ask me to explain chapter 12. That's what I was getting ready to do. But you got something else to say, so go ahead.
Okay, who are those? Okay, who are those? Who are those who are looked upon Yah that was pierced?
That was Yah that was pierced. Go to the book of Jeremiah chapter 30 and chapter 10. Yah is talking about himself. He was egregiously wounded, pierced by the children of Israel because they turned away from him after all he had done for them. Repeatedly they turned away. He is the one that's wounded. He is the one that was pierced, brother.
Okay, I'm done. Have a good night.
Peace.
All right, this is the hot seat segment right here on the Debate Talk Radio, where anybody can call in We have 42 minutes on the air, guys. That's right, 42 minutes on the air. We're going to try to get to as much of your questions and comments as possible. Again, you got to dial the number, 319-527-6239. Then you got to press number 1, and that lets me know that you have a question or a comment for our special guest, YHWH ben Yisrael of Yah, Our Righteousness. Remember his website, go to YHWHourrighteousnesschicago.net. That's Yah, Our Righteousness, Chicago.net. Go to the website, check it out. But let's go to 716-833. You're live.
Thank you, Sal. This is Sister Doris. I don't, and I like to say good evening to your guest. But you said so much, sir. I don't even know where to begin.
Just come from your heart.
Oh, okay. Now you harping on the letter J. Now there were no letters in hieroglyphs. So when people say that about the letter J, I have no understanding. And I have codex where the letter J was used in the 1st century. And I would like to say that, are you familiar with the passage in the Bible where Jesus washed his disciples' feet? I challenge you to show me where Jesus was worshipped, because I don't worship Jesus. See, that's a false premise. Now, I challenge you in the New Testament, find me somebody that worshiped him. But my real point is, when you started off talking about Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar and the figure, I noticed that you left off the verse regarding the stone. Why did you skip that? Because I would like some edification on that verse in Daniel regarding the stone, because you left that out.
Okay, I got the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it?
The stone.
Okay, I didn't skip it. Okay, again, I no problem. The stone is representative of the seed of David today, cut out without hands. Okay, you see the seed of David talked about there in Isaiah chapter 42. Okay, again, you see it talked about in chapter 49, Isaiah. Chapter 53, Isaiah, root out of dry ground, right? As it says in the chapter 42, who is deaf but my servant, or blind is my messenger that I sent? Seeing many things, observing not, hearing many things, understanding not, okay? But he was perfect because he put his trust in the Creator, didn't know who the Creator was, but he knew it was one. Didn't know he was Israelite, okay? But he wanted to know the truth because he kept seeing discrepancies, okay? He kept seeing contradictions, okay? One of them was major to him was they tell us being people of color, so-called Negroes, black, colored folks, African Americans, right, that it's because we are black that we are ostracized, that we are discriminated against, that we are oppressed, that we are inferior, okay? That's what they tell us. But he saw many Caucasian, so-called white people, pink people, pale people, sitting on the beach with suntan lotion trying to get dark, just like him and his people. That's a major contradiction right there. If so-called black or brown or dark complexion was the reason why we, suffer all of these discriminatory laws and attacks, then why are they trying to get dark like us? Something's wrong there. That's a red flag, right? When they tell us that we are inferior, okay, that we're not as smart as them. Well, that's not true, okay, because, again, he saw many of us, you understand, doing profound things. And as came to find out, we've invented many things, okay, many things. If you ever saw the documentary Colors, it tells you that, you understand, it was a person of color that invented the combustible engine, Okay, it's supposed to be the person of color that invented the telephone, that invented the stoplight. Okay, because we had to invent a lot of things out of necessity to ease our burden. Okay, because we were doing everything. Okay, so again,
Sir, really?
It's
okay,
so
but
again,
I want to get back to the verse. Now,
coming back
it
to
said
the stone, the stone again.
We should have never left it. I'm just saying.
Is that seed of David that, you understand, when you look at the 49th chapter, Yeshaya, that's the seed of David talking. Yah has called, again, that's the top of chapter 42. Yah has called me from, no, that's 49, right? Yah has called me from the womb, right? That's the seed of David talking, the stone cut out without hands, because he does not get this understanding, this illumination through any theological seminary, any school, educational facility. Okay, he goes into the book on his own, and over a period of time, and study, praying, and complying to the laws, statutes, ordinances, judges, commandments, and precepts of YHWH, Yah gives him this illumination, the ability to understand. And he brings illumination through people who are not here, as we got these prophets from Genesis through Malachi, right? They're not here. They've been long since gone the way of all the earth. But this is what we're reading, the word of Yah that he brought through his prophets, okay, as is so designated in Deuteronomy 18th chapter, right, as it is in other chapters in the book of Jeremiah, right? He raised up prophets early, sending them when he saw Israel getting out of harmony with him, to try to tell them to get back in harmony. But as we see in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 5, chapter 11 and 26, 27, they would not hear, right? But again, what does he say there in chapter 49? He says, Yah has called me from the womb, from the bowels of my mother. Again, when he says he's called him from the womb, that's his maternal mother. When he says from the bowels of my mother hath he made mention of my name, well, again, that's going back to Jeremiah chapter 23, right? When Yah actually said what his movement would be called. See, he talked about it about 100 years earlier in Yeshaya chapter 62. Because he says there, out of his mouth, he would call his servants by another name, right? And then about 100 years later, in the 23rd chapter of the book of Jeremiah, commonly called, right, he tells you what that movement would be called. Now, when you go there, you're going to see the Lord our righteousness. But as I said earlier, if you were here from the top of this session, you heard me say again, and maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't, maybe you got to do some more research. In over 6,800 places, these descendants of Esau called Mezerites from the 4th to the 9th century. And again, I'm saying they were descendants of Esau because they're the only ones who've actually translated this book coming up through time. No Israelite ever translated this book because we didn't have to, okay? It's only been the Edomites that have attacked this book of remembrance, this so-called Old Testament. And again, if you go to Malachi chapter 3, 15 to the 18th verse, that's what Yah called it, the book of remembrance. He had a book of remembrance put together for this day and age, for those who would think upon his name, singular name, because he's one. As I said earlier, when you go to Deuteronomy chapter 6, when you go to Zechariah, chapter 14, after the last battle. He's one, his name is going to be one. He's always been one. Not 2, not 3, not 4. So the stone, again, what does it say in 49? He's called me from the womb, from the bowels of my mother. Our mother is our forefathers, right? That's when Yah said what his name would be called. Again, during the days of Jeremiah. Again, the 23rd chapter, about you could say possibly the middle of Jeremiah's watch. We know Jeremiah started prophesying in 628 BCE, and just about his last prophecy was about 584 BCE. Okay, that's the time of his watch. So, again, what does it go on to say in 49? Yah hid me in his quiver and made me his polished shaft and made my mouth like a sharp sword. Okay? And again, that's the refinement that all of us who turn to Yah with all our heart and soul, that's what we come up under. We're being refined. We're being prepared for the time to come. Okay? Because, again, these illuminated Edomites have attacked this book of remembrance. They've changed things. Go ahead.
Well, okay, but you had spent a lot of time on that when you were explaining the verse, but you keep stopping there. But my question was really regarding what, when it says that the stone is going to dash the foot in pieces.
Right.
Has that happened?
Yeah, that's happened. It is happening. But it's already hit. It hit some years ago. It basically hit in 2004, September 2004, because if you're acquainted with the 52nd chapter of Yeshaya Isaiah, all right, when those monarchies, when those kings, okay, and queens were sprinkled with the publication, and they heard things that they had not been told about, they considered things they've never heard before. They saw this movement of the Most High that they had not been told about, okay? Because as I said earlier, Yah righteousness was established in September 1986. But it wasn't until September 2004 that the monarchies were sprinkled with the publication that's talked about in that 52nd chapter, uplifted and magnifying Yah of hosts, okay? And when you look at that 52nd chapter, when they got sprinkled with that publication, that's when they saw that which they hadn't been told about, and they started to consider which that they had never heard before. And when you look at that and then go to the 41st chapter of Yeshaya Isaiah, you'll see there in that 41st chapter when Yah, he's talking, and he says, I've raised up one from the north. From the rising of the sun shall he call upon my name. And I shall bring him upon princes or kings, same thing, like upon mortar, like the potter treads clay. So when the monarchies received that publication, the kings, the queens, the princes, that's when the Spirit of Yah started shaping and molding them. Just like the Spirit of Yah shaped and molded Nebuchadnezzar that I talked about earlier. Okay? When he was, his thoughts in his head upon his bed was, what's going to happen in the future? What's going to happen in the hereafter when I go the way of all the earth? And because he had those thoughts, that's when Yah gave Daniel the interpretation and the dream first, and with the interpretation, so that he could tell this to Nebuchadnezzar. And in doing so, you don't see it in the 2nd chapter of Daniel, but you know Daniel magnified and uplifted the name of Yah. See again.
Okay.
My apologies.
One more, Sal. He keeps saying, you keep saying Yah, and you're talking about the letter J. Now, if you're familiar with Hebrew, you'll know that there are no vowels in Hebrew.
I understand that.
But you say Yah.
Yeah, vowel points, sister. Vowel points. You hear Yah's name when you say Isaiah, even if you say it in the English. We say Yeshaya. Okay? Most people say Elijah, but it's Eliyah. Right? How many people say Yah when they say Hallelujah? I know you've heard that term, Kumbaya, come back Yah, right? You hear these people who say that the name of the Creator is Jehovah. You hear them say it's Yahweh. You hear them say it's Yahweh. You hear them say it's Yahuwah, Yehovah, But they all will say at some point, Hallelujah.
Okay, one more, and I'm going to get off the line, and I'll listen to your response when you were talking about Israel. Now, if you read the scriptures, Judah and Israel, the Most High made sure that they had separate histories. When Judah was in captivity in Babylon, Israel wasn't. When Israel was in captivity in Assyria, Judah wasn't. But you make a distinction. I'll listen to your answer. Thank you.
Well, again, you got it a little, confused. The deal is that Samaria, who was called Israel or Ephraim at times, as we see in Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 7, and also over in Hosea, they went into captivity. The 10 tribes went into captivity first because they went away from Yah first under Jeroboam, okay, which is in the latter part of the 10th century BCE when Jeroboam, okay, was given 10 of the tribes. Okay, and Yah had told Solomon he was going to, split the nation because of what Solomon had done by building the 3 idols he built for 3 of his wives, right? So Yah gave 10 of the tribes to Jeroboam and made him governor over those 10 tribes. But as we see with different governors, when they got to thinking that they actually was the king, okay, and not the CEO, but they started thinking that they were the king, that's when they got in trouble. And that's what happened to Jeroboam. He set up the 2 calves in Samaria because he didn't want the people to go up to Jerusalem to worship the king, Yah of hosts, right? So that's when the 10 tribes departed from Yah. Yah talks about this and makes mention of this in Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 7, when he says he beckoned to Samaria, to Israel, because they call Israel, they're the 10 tribes. He said to return, but they return not. And in the very next line, he talks about YHWH. Again, you got to remember that the names they've been changed. As I just said to the person that called before you, there has never been a tribe in the nation of Israel called Judah. Okay? The tribe that the illuminated Edomites put in place of, put Judah in the place of is YHWH. YHWH. That's what Leah named her 4th son. YHWH. Yah be praised. He who creates be praised. So again, it was the 10 tribes that went into captivity first. They started going into captivity in 741 BCE. Tiglath-Pileser III, Pul, as he's called over in 1 Chronicles chapter 5. Okay? It's kind of, when you read chapter 5, this kind of the way they translated it is like it's talking about 2 different people, but it's talking about the same person. Tiglath-Pileser III, or Pul, Yah brought him. He put the 2.5 tribes that were on the other side of the Jordan in the siege, and he took all of them out, and he took them up into the land of the Medes, which today is part of what's called Iran. Okay, and it says there in 1 Chronicles chapter 5 where their descendants are unto this day. Okay, now later on with Shalmaneser V in 725 BCE, okay, which is the 3rd year of Hezekiah, when Hezekiah came on the throne, all right, because Ahaz died in 728 BCE. That's how come we know that in Yeshaya chapter 7 or Isaiah chapter 7, when it says, Yeshaya, Isaiah, and his son, his eldest son, or his only son at the time, Shuyeshub, were sent to Ahaz to tell him, don't be worried about Pekah, the son of Remaliah, who was governor over the 10 tribes at the time, and Rezin, the king of Syria, had allied themselves against him to remove him because he wouldn't join them in this rebellion against Tiglath-Pileser III or Pul. So they were going to remove him. And so Yah sent Yeshaya, Isaiah, and Shuyeshub, his only son at the time, to tell Ahaz and the people of YHWH and Benjamin and Lawai, okay, don't worry about this because I'm not going to let this happen, okay? And then he goes on to tell them, because, you understand, don't be afraid of these 2 smoking firebrands. And he said, ask a sign of me, okay? And he said this through Yeshaya. And you see that in Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 7. Okay, and Ahaz was told to ask a sign so that he would know that everything that Yeshaya and his son had brought to him was from Yah. But he was recalcitrant, stiff-necked, and stubborn. Okay, and he became an idolater. because he had just came up on the throne in 744 BCE. And if you want to get more understanding, if you don't have already from what I'm saying to you, just go into Kings or Chronicles and read about Ahaz, and you'll see what his character was all about. He was froward, willful, recalcitrant, stiff-necked, stubborn, and an idolater, all right? But nevertheless, he was told by Yeshaya, and you see this in chapter 7, when he wouldn't ask a sign of Yah, Yeshaya said to him, O son of David, you understand, you weary men, are you going to weary Yah, my strong one also? So since you won't ask a sign of Yah, Yah going to give you a sign anyway. Behold, the prophetess, that's what it said initially. Okay, you can go with Alma, that was the initial word that was there, not Bethula, which means virgin. Okay, because we see in the transliteration, the illuminated Edomite put virgin. But again, when you do some research, you see that virgin is not the word that was there. And again, the Hebraic term for virgin was Bethula. That word was not there. The word was Alma, which means a young maiden, marriageable age, veiled. But in actuality, what was there was prophetess. Just what you see in Yeshaya Isaiah chapter 8. Because the prophetess was Yeshaya Isaiah's wife. Okay? And he was told, he said, you understand, to go to the prophetess, she going to bear a son, call his name Emmanuel. Right?
I apologize, Elder. I apologize, Elder. We only got 20 minutes on the air, so I got to jump in. We only got 20 minutes on the air. We got some more callers standing by. You don't mind if we take these two more callers? Because we only got 20 minutes on the air. All right, let's do it. And if you got to come back and do another part, hey, you can do that. We can always set up another one because there's a lot of information that you're bringing out, and I'm pretty sure people taking down their notes. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. Like I said, we got 20 minutes on the air. Let's get another question real quick. Squeeze one in. 224, you're live.
Shalom, how you doing, Sal, and shalom to the host or the guest. I'm sorry.
Peace, bro.
All right. Peace. So I just had a question. So you believe that the Messiah is going to reign in Jerusalem, obviously in the future, right?
I don't really understand the question.
Or okay, will the Messiah be the king of Jerusalem in the future?
No, the Messiah is the servant of YHWH, the king. The Messiah, or anointed, in regards to what I'm getting, what you mean, that seed of David that Yah said he would raise up in the end time, the end of the four kingdoms of man, to prepare the way before him, like it says in Malachi chapter 3, the messenger. He's not the king. Yah is the king. He's just the governor. He'll be the governor. He's the CEO, if you want to say it like that, chief executive officer, in the sense of he takes orders from the owner of the corporation. Okay? Yah is the king. He's the owner of all of this. All right? That anointed, and again, as I've said in the past to everyone, any Israelite that awakens to the fact that they are an Israelite, they are anointed. That's what you see in Isaiah Yeshaya chapter 44. That's what you see in Ezekiel 37, okay, and a few other places. Any Israelite that awakens to the fact that Israel is anointed with the Spirit of Yah. Now, you're talking about the messenger. That's what you're referring to. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to put it like that. I mean, I don't have the same beliefs as you do for the most part, but
I have beliefs, brother. I don't have beliefs. Again, belief means you're accepting something that you really don't know is real or not. You really don't know. Okay? Beliefs are like theories, like scientists have, right? Scientists have theories, beliefs, right? And then what does the scientists do? They do experiments, cause and effect, to prove or disprove their theory. And once they've done that, now it is no longer a theory, it is a fact, one way or the other. It's substantiated or unsubstantiated, but it's become factual. See, most people make decisions predicated on belief, what they think, feel, believe, and accept. not what they know and understand.
Right.
Okay?
All right. Well, all right. Well, I mean, I asked. I mean, you know, you don't. It seems like you don't really have the same view as, you know, maybe a so-called Jew. But that's okay. So, because it's my understanding that the king of Israel will be the Messiah when he reigns as king for 1,000 years. But what is confusing to me is in Zechariah 14, unless you believe that God is going to come down and literally reign as king over Israel, it's confusing because it's saying that Yahweh is actually going to be the king and comes down and reigns on over all the earth. But at the same time, we got the Messiah that does the same thing.
Okay, now to answer your question, because it's like, you know, it's kind of like the Gordian knot, what you presented. See, you are confused, and I'm not saying that being disparaging or condescending, okay, because you just said it yourself. You're confused, and you are, okay, because your mind is shaped and formed by the narrative that the illuminated Edomites constantly put forward, and their narrative is to confuse, all right? But again, when you look at Exodus, okay, chapter 25, 6, 7, when Yah brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, see, Moshe already had the law. He got the law from his father-in-law, Jethro. And again, as we've come to find out in the last 7-8 months, Jethro was not a priest. That hadn't been set up yet, okay? Jethro was not a priest, but he was a Midianite, and he was about the law of Yah. As we see in the 26th chapter of Genesis, all right, what is Yah? Yah's talking there, and he said he knew Abraham would teach all of his children his laws and commandments. You can't teach something that you don't have, right? In the New Testament, it tells you Abraham didn't have the law. That is a blatant lie, okay? Because, again, as I just pointed out, in Genesis chapter 26, Yah is saying he knew Abraham would teach all his children his laws, commandments, and statutes and ordinances, right? Okay, so now Abraham had 6 children by his second wife, Keturah. One of them's name was Midian. He's the father of the Midianites. Jethro was a Midianite, okay? And when Moses, right, after he killed the Egyptian who was smiting one of his brethren, again, okay, so don't go for the Cecil B. DeMille, you know, narrative that Esau put through him back with the 10 Commandments, right? Moses knew he was Israel. Everybody knew he was Israel, okay? His foster mother was Hatshepsut, the daughter of Thutmose I. She's the one that pulled Moses out the water and named him Moshe because she pulled him out the water. And Yah put a spirit on her where she went to her father, Thutmose I, who had issued the decree to kill all of the male children of Israel. And she said, Daddy, I want to keep this one. All right? Now, people will say, where are you getting that, YHWH? Where is this in Scripture? Again, when you get Great Men of Color by J.A. Rogers, Volume 1, and you read about Hatshepsut, it's going to tell you that her father, Thutmose I, he doted upon her. In other words, he was weak-minded for her. So, again, that's understandable, right? When you go into the history of Hatshepsut, she's the first woman in known history, right, that ruled a nation. And she ruled Egypt for about 20 years, okay, from about 1503 to 1483, okay? And then her brother husband, because they were in the incest, all right, Thutmose III had her killed. And then he became king or pharaoh over Egypt, all right? So now when she pulled Moses out that water, she was his, you understand, his foster mother. She took care of him. Everybody knew he was Israel, but wasn't nobody going to say nothing because, again, she had sway on her father, Thutmose I, and then she basically took over after about a 2-year, gap that her Thutmose II, which was her brother, and she eventually got rid of him, and then she took over, right? But Moses lived the first 40 years of his life from 1520 to 1480 in Egypt. All right? Root out of dry ground. Didn't have no knowledge more likely than not of the law because he was raised in the house of Pharaoh. All right? Then as he Egyptian, he had to flee, and he went to Midian. And he spent the next 40 years of his life in Midian, and he married the daughter, took to wife, the eldest daughter, Zipporah, of Jethro. Okay? And again, Jethro was not a priest because that hadn't even been set up yet. All right? Again, when you go to Exodus 25, 26, 27, you're going to see when Yah brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, that's when he communicated to Moshe. He says to set up the tabernacle, gave him all of the dimensions of the tabernacle. And what does it say there? Because Yah said he would dwell in the midst of the children of Israel. Okay? And that's
I got to
what
jump in real quick. I apologize, Elder. Once again, there's only like 11 minutes left on the air. 11 minutes left on the air. And I'm going to squeeze in one more person for you to ask you a question. There's one more, and after that, we're going to wrap it up. There's only 11 minutes left. Once again, I appreciate everybody that called into the hot seat segment, and we're going to try to get YHWH ben Israel back on the platform. I see a lot of people have questions for the brother. So let's go to 803 real quick. You're live, 803.
Hey.
803.
Y'all bless.
Yes. What's going on?
Y'all bless all. How y'all doing?
Peace, brother. Y'all bless.
Y'all bless. That's Austin, you're calling from out of South Carolina. And I was concerned, just listening all and loving the magnifying of Yah's name. And I was just wondering about the ones that's dealing with the New Testament, that's involved with the New Testament. Whenever they're dealing with sin offerings, I want to know why they never considered the fact that a sin offering had to be a female goat or sheep, the fact that it couldn't be injured. And when Christ was taken to the stake or to the cross, he was all bloody. A sin offering had to be taken to the priest to be sacrificed on the altar in the temple. Christ was not sacrificed. It's a human sacrifice. Y'all don't deal with human sacrifice. So I just wanted to make a comment based on that and, see where your mindset is about that.
Well, again, Yah said that human sacrifice never came into his mind. He doesn't accept it, as you said, brother. Mm-hmm. And also, it says over in Deuteronomy chapter 24, nobody can die for anybody else's sins. Everybody dies for their own sin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So again, that's some of the things that knock out the New Testament and its main idol. Okay? That was written basically how I see it here at Yah Righteousness. Again, the illuminated Edomite, as they became illuminated, they found out through studying all of the doctrine and the historical doctrine of the Egyptians how we got turned out. And it's also in this book of remembrance, okay? Because when you go to Ezekiel chapter 23, and it talks about Israel, the two sisters, right, who were in Egypt, and how we lost our virginity in Egypt. That's where we really got turned out, in Egypt, those 400 years of affliction in Egypt, because that, as we've said here before in the past, you understand, Israel was in Egypt 430 years. The first 30 years, they were about Yah. And the reason why they were about Yah, basically, the first and foremost reason is because Israel and Yahoseph, Joseph's oldest brothers, they feared him, not Yah. All right? But Yahoseph, he was all about Yah. From day one, when he came into the world, that's why, again, as you understand, it was brought to me a few months ago, and again, I'm still learning too, right? This brother and sister that's been plugged into Yah Righteousness now for about 10 years, they brought it to me because Yah brought it to them. That's why Yahoseph, the coat of many colors, was made for him by his father, Jacob. Okay? Because Jacob had 10 sons, and none of them were totally committed and submitted to Yah. And he was disheartened about that because he was keeping the light. As I said earlier, Israel, we're the light bearers. The descendants of Esau are the prince of darkness, because they are in total opposition to Yah, basically. Definitely these Amalekite Edomites, and they're the ones who have the dominion in the world today. That's your international bankers, these Amalekite illuminated Edomites, led by the house of Rothschild. From what we can see here at Yah Righteousness, I've talked about it numerous times through the years. And we see in Numbers chapter 24, Yah is saying there that Amalek, that's how I pronounce it. Some people call it Amalek. I pronounce it Amalek or Amalekite. And Yah tells us prophetically, as he brought through Balaam, the son of Beor, who was a Midianite, right? In the last prophecy he brought through Balaam, that, and he's talking about the end times, talking about now, that Amalek would be first of the nations. In other words, it would be the Amalekite line of the descendants of Esau that would rise to the dominion of the world. And we know that had to happen from Genesis chapter 27. Is that not right? Isn't that what Isaac told Esau when he kept crying and falling out like a spoiled brat because he wanted that blessing, right? He said, you know, one day you're going to break your brother's yoke off your neck. That can only happen when Israel turned into darkness. We cannot rise to the heights of our potential and illumination in darkness, okay, when we're not in harmony with Yah, okay? So, again, when we turned away from Yah and his laws and statutes became an abomination to our forefathers, then our forefathers became an abomination to Yah. That's why in Exodus chapter 34, Yah said, it's a terrible thing I'm going to do with the children of Israel, all right, because everything is before Yah. That's why we're reading in this book that's still now fulfilled, that was started to be written, over 3,500 years ago? And it's still now fulfilled, but it's not that much left. It's only maybe about 5% of prophecy left to be fulfilled, because we're in the last days of the kingdoms of man, not the kingdoms of the Gentiles. That's what Esau put over there in that New Testament to keep you confused, because, see, he wants everybody to think that he's a Gentile. You understand what I'm saying? Like a lot of Israelites, from what I understand, they think that the so-called white men, the Caucasian descendants of Japheth, are Edomites, and that's not true. As I said earlier, when you go to the one chapter of Obadiah, what does Yah say about the Edomites? He has made them small amongst the heathen. They are greatly despised. And this is why you see now with economic inequality, economic collapse across the earth, right? You got a lot of Caucasians, a lot of descendants of Japheth who have risen up, as well as a lot of descendants out of Shem, like over in Lebanon, like down in Colombia, and there's a lot of us down there in Colombia, risen up against these bankers, you understand? A lot of Caucasians over in France, in Greece, in Italy, in Spain. You understand? They rising up because of this economic inequality. When you have a few men, less than 1% of the population of the world, and you got about over 9 billion people, so they say, hypothetically, on this earth, and half of them are impoverished. Economic collapse. And that's why they're rising up. And many and more know it's these bankers, the Jews, as they call them. Okay? And again, Israel is not Jews. The Jews are the Edomites. The only Israelites that saying they're Jews are the ones that are confused.
All right, let me jump in real quick, guys. All right, so there you have it. We only have like 3 minutes left in the air, so once again, I appreciate my special guest, YHWH in Israel, for coming on the program of Yah Our Righteousness. Like I said, go to his website. That's YHWHchicago.net, spelled YHWH Our Righteousness Chicago.net. It's in the link in the description box. You can just click on the link and reach out to see what's going on. Just give him some last words, and after that, we're going to wrap it up. Last words.
From me? Are you talking to me, brother?
Yeah,
again, it's our pleasure, again, because, again, Yah does not bring this through me because I'm wiser or better or, you understand, more knowledgeable in a sense than anybody else. It's a lot of people more and more that's acquiring this knowledge. But he brings this illumination out through his servant, one of his servants, through this movement, called by his name, predicated upon his laws, statutes, orders, judgments, commandments, and precepts, so that all of the people out there, no matter, again, as I said, Hamite, Shemite, Yephite, Israelite, Edomite, if you're seeking Yah of hosts so that you can make a true decision, okay? You can be directed, you'll be direct. You come to this movement, you're directed to read this book of remembrance, this so-called Old Testament, King James authorized version. And again, that's the only transliteration that fulfills 46:13, Isaiah, Yeshaya, and 51:5, Yeshaya, when Yah says, I have brought near my righteousness, my salvation is soon to follow. And when he says in 51:5, my righteousness is near, his righteousness is his word. Okay? And everybody's got to read this time. That's the new covenant. 31:31, Jeremiah, Jeremiah. Everybody got to read this time. Other than that, you just thinking, feeling, believing, and accepting. But you don't know anything. That's why so many people are confused.